in the process right now of taking on a new inventory system, and it's a pain point for my teams. It's restarting from scratch because none of them will actually upload your old information and recipes into them. And yes, there's support from the tech side of the company that we've decided to partner with. But when it comes down to it, it's a learning process, and it's a big, long, stodgy process, and it's not fun.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Shift Change podcast. I'm super excited to have Liza join us today. She is with Eclective. She's their Chief Operating Officer there, and we're really anxious to hear about this really interesting concept behind the business and to hear about some of the challenges and some of the encouraging, ideas and activities that are going on within the business and the industry itself. And so, Liza, thank you for joining. I'm so excited to have you on.
My pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So it seems like Eclective it kind of sits in a really interesting space between creativity, hospitality, brand, operations, all of those things. I'd love to start with kind of your path and how you ended up in this kind of work.
Sure. Well, first of all, Kelly, even though I bear the COO title, I refer to myself as the champion of outlandish operations.
I love it. I love it.
Titles. I work hand in hand with my teams, and we're a very unusual company. I would call us experiential. I think that the creative nature kind of flows through everything that we do. My background is in traditional restaurant operations. I've been in this field almost 30 years now. I'm getting old. And I started out with a part-time gig at a brew pub in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and fell in love with the industry while I was trying to find my path when I was really young. Worked my way through every position in that company, worked my way into different companies, and ended up kind of the place in my career where I felt like I had really started to really learn was a 10-year stint that I did with the Bartolotta Restaurant Group as their director of training and development out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They retaught me everything I knew about restaurants. I was with them a little bit less than a decade. And then after that, kind of branched into craft beer and finally here. I'm in Minnesota now. All of our stores are located in St. Paul. And currently, we have 5 concepts underneath our umbrella. And I also have a side gig with a brand new distillery and women-owned cocktail bar that just opened as well.
Ooh, I want to hear about that.
We all play together in some way.
That's amazing. So give us a little bit of a sense of Eclective today. What does the business look like? What falls under your scope within your role in the business?
I'm laughing because I wear many hats within the company.
Yeah, I get it.
I report directly to our owner, Rob Clapp, and the two of us hand in hand make a lot of the operational decisions for the company. I'll talk a little bit about the venues because each venue is incredibly unique from each other. Our first was Can Wonderland, which is a mini golf and adult and family-friendly playground. It has the largest vintage arcade. It actually got accolades from USA Today as one of the best mini golf courses in the country, which we're really proud of. And you can, for an entrance fee, play as much as you want all day long. And we have stages and music acts. It's a really, really fun venue. We also have St. Paul Brewing. That was our second venue. It's located in the historic Hams complex from 1865. And in that venue, we're a brew pub. So we have a full liquor license. We make our own beer. We make our own hard seltzer, our own THC. We serve wine there. And we have one of the most beautiful, crafted, and upcycled patios in the state.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's very, very cool. And that brings along our third property. So we plant this beautiful patio at St. Paul Brewing with about $20,000 of wholesale floral every single year. And we realized very quickly that we got very expensive to hire on a vendor to do this every year. So we have a boutique floral studio called Martha's Gardens that is responsible for that planting. And they do events and all sorts of events-driven things. And then finally, we have Dark Horse Bar and Eatery, which is our newest concept that opened in July. And that is a full service restaurant that we're launching a beautiful agave program in, and it has a great space. The last thing I'll say is the thing that really keeps our operations running and what makes us unusual is we also have a fabrication studio called the Wonder Studio underneath our
Okay.
belt. We employ 8 full-time artists, and they are responsible for the creative in all of our spaces. So they
Okay.
can merchandise, they can 3D print, they can make large vestibules and entryways,
Hmm.
fun things that you see that makes an event special. We can do all of that in house. So when we talk about vertical integration, that's the heartbeat of our company, as is
Yeah.
energy.
I love that. It sounds like there's so much going on with, under the umbrella. I'd
Yeah.
love to know what's the part of the job that people on the outside probably underestimate.
I think it's the amount of creative energy that goes into each thing we do.
Hmm.
When I grew up in restaurants, as I said, and there are two different types of drivers of sales. I think there are top line drivers and there are bottom line drivers. We have never been afraid to take creative risk. We want to
Hmm.
emotional response in every single guest that we meet. And sometimes that's all about crafting and creating the unusual. Rob Clapp, our proprietor, really loves concepts like immersive concepts like Meow and
Oh,
loves
yeah. It's
he
a good
just digs
one.
that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
he just wants to create really cool venues that you feel emotionally connected to that are unusual, and we've really become a destination for that. All of our
Yeah.
stores play in the same sandbox, but they're very different venues from each other, and we just want to make people happy and smile every single day in this world that sometimes is tough to smile in because
It's
it's so
yeah. It's
yeah,
so nice to have that.
yeah.
What do you think makes that, you know, that goal or that objective harder than most people realize?
Well, I think there's been a big shift when it's come to, I don't want to say talent pool, but the difference in parenting that has changed our generational gaps in how.
Mhm.
And when you were speaking about technology, I think this is one of the biggest challenges. I do think that, and I had a first iteration. I'm old now, but first iteration of iPhone, and have had an iPhone ever since, right?
Yeah.
And so I was pre-technology when I first got into restaurants.
Mhm.
We truly think that the amount of screen time that we get creates a disassociation with the connection with the guest. Where if you had asked me 20 years ago if I would have to train young servers and bartenders to look somebody in the eye and smile when you see them, or to talk about what that connection looks like, it's very
Mhm.
different today than it was
Yeah.
then. We had to shift and make it a part of our grassroots training that we do. And although I love technology for the things that it brings to us and the efficiencies that it brings,
Mhm.
sometimes it takes away even more that guest connection contact piece, which I'm old fashioned. I want every one of our stores to have guests feel like cheers when they walk in. I want to know
Yeah.
their name, know their drink, know their kids' names. I want to create that relationship with
Yeah.
them. So that part is challenging. There's a fear and reluctance because of being keyboard warriors behind the screen to connect.
Yeah.
We have to work that much harder at that.
Is there a difference between front of house? I'm sure there is a difference, but I'm curious what your thoughts are. And the front of the house and back of the house when it comes to technology. So you've got your front of the house, the people facing folks that, yeah, you don't want them hiding behind a screen, or, you want them to be cognizant of the people that are in front of them. On the back of the house, though, is there a difference from a technology perspective? Are they leveraging technology more to run the operations of the business?
Now, yes, I do think that there's still challenges in both departments. I mean, let's face it, restaurants are built on a melting pot of individuals that come from different backgrounds, different
Mhm.
educational levels. We have a amazing team that's very, very diverse.
Mhm.
I don't think that age gap necessarily means anything. I have some older, mature hires that can use technology just as well as some of my young ones coming in the door. That being said, I think everybody continues to adapt, and we do run KDS screens in all of our kitchens, and our
Mhm.
team has gotten, I mean, used to that process.
Yeah. Yeah.
getting away from the handwritten ticket back from when I was really young in the industry,
Yeah.
really taken milestones towards that. So do some people struggle with it? Yes, but I don't think anymore it's back of the house versus front of the house. Although I will say
Okay.
for my team tools, back of the house is sometimes a little behind on reading the special of the day or paying attention to the everyday things that my front of the house team is really glued into because it's part of their selling tactics of what they do every day.
The back of the house, when you say they're just kind of slower to see those kinds of things, is it because they're just busy doing other work and they're just not paying attention to that? Or is it because there's a complexity there that's creating a
Don't think it's a complexity. I just think
okay.
it's challenged with other things. I think
Okay.
that each member of our team focuses on the things that they need to focus on, and
Mhm.
we do a lot of pre-shifting through technology. We do a lot of this is a new special or a menu flip or some new housekeeping rule that we're doing, and that impacts, I think, our front of the house a little bit more than it does
Mhm.
the house on an everyday basis.
Okay, that makes sense. So obviously you're building these experiences with your patrons. How do you protect the creative vision of what you're trying to achieve, but also building enough structure to operate all of that really well?
We are in the world of constant pivoting. I think it is challenging. I think pandemic was very challenging for
Mhm.
restaurants, and Minnesota specifically, the last few months have been very, very challenging for
Yeah.
restaurants. There's
Yeah.
a lot of restaurant recovery that's happening right now, so
Mhm.
I think it's getting ahead of it. I think that to build foundations, you have to build trust with your team, and you have to train and teach your team that it's okay to make a mistake. We just need to grow from it. It's okay, to take blame for something as long as you are continuing to be a sponge. None of us know everything. So every single day being in that with my team and being in it with them every single day, being hands-on with them makes a big difference too. But I think that in this world, if you don't pivot right now, you're not going to survive. We see bars and restaurants and breweries and distilleries closing everywhere in Minnesota and in the country right now. It's a tough
Mhm.
time.
Can you give me an example of a pivot? What that means for you and where you've experienced that?
Sure. I'm always paying attention. So we're in the Midwest. So I'm always paying attention to trends. And some trends are really relevant to the Midwest, and some trends not so much, or maybe it'll take 3 or 4 or 5 years for it to hit us here in the middle of the country. But a great trend that isn't going away right now, that has to be a pivot, is the guests that are swaying away from drinking spirits and
Ah, yeah.
beer. So I honestly think, and we were very intentional in our stores, and in my new property, our distillery, we have a very unusual stance. We're a distillery that doesn't care if a guest wants to imbibe alcohol or not when they come into our space. We are crafting zero proof beverages with the same intention and a value driven price point for our guests, and we're not making it an afterthought. I think for so many, so we're hospitalitarians first. And I truly believe that that means taking care of your own people. And I can tell you, in this industry, being in it forever, so many people, because of health, because of addiction, because of other things, have turned away from drinking, and that's a life change that isn't going away anytime soon. Your corporations are disinterested, and instead of saying, you know what, we just need to do it the way we've always been doing it, instead we need to look at it and say, you know what, those guests want to have amazing experiences. They want to have curated experiences. My One of my best friends doesn't drink, and she wants to come out and have the same occasion, same festive occasion with me when she goes out. And when she comes out and can't find anything on a menu besides soda or a mocktail that's made with juice and seltzer water and a lime garnish, it's not interesting to her. Like, and she'll just order, water, and that's what she drinks. So when it comes down to it, it's things like that. Taking care of your people first is a pivot, and you always have to be tuning into them to see what matters to them and what matters to our. The other thing that we do is we are very grassroots with getting into our community. I believe that knowing your neighbors, being old fashioned in those relationships, building on them, supporting and lifting others up. I always think it's really funny when businesses gatekeep. I understand that we all have proprietary information, but we work so much better together when we are sharing thoughts and ideas, which is why I love that you're putting together this podcast.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot that people can get out of that. And when we don't have direct access to people that are experiencing the same kinds of issues that are, national or global, it's good to hear from other people that are having the same issues. So I agree. I think it's really important to get, to kind of normalize some of the things that are going on by having these kinds of conversations. You had mentioned, sometimes your people make mistakes, things like that. Do you see those kinds of mistakes that come up? Do you see them as process related issues, macroeconomic issues, systems issues, or just, you know,
All of the above. Just to
human
kind
issues? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're all behaviorally, we're all
Yeah.
different, right? We all have different learning styles. And
Yeah.
I think it's hard, especially in this world, to admit when you're wrong or to admit
Hmm.
failure. There's a fear around failing. And
Yeah.
I think, again, when you think about gatekeeping and why so many people do things the same way for so long, it has to do with that fear, right? That fear of, I don't want to look foolish. What if I make a mistake? What if my business, which is already impacted by high cost of goods and employee dollars that we're spending on labor, what if I make this mistake and the little money that I'm making reduces even more? There's a lot of fear and risk. But
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day that you have to take some thoughtful risk to be
Hmm.
successful. And that's why leaning into other people within your community or other resources becomes really necessary.
Yeah. Are there any specific issues that you see within the business that do have real impact on costs, like some of the issues that we've talked about, how those actually play out in costing you or the business actual dollars?
That time of the team is challenging when you're juggling technology.
Yeah.
And I will say that when I came to the company, we had so many different logins for so many different systems. And if you look at each software system, you look at your point of sales, you look at your inventory system, you look at your shift notes of or whatever you're doing, your scheduling login, all those pieces, you can make them all play together. And my company has been working to get to a point where they play better together and integrate better. But I will
Hmm.
tell you, doing that, I don't always know that we have the best system that does the best bells and whistles for each piece of it. I'll give
Yeah.
it an example. We are currently utilizing a reservation system, and there is another one that I like more, but it doesn't integrate as well with the technology that we're using. So I have to make a decision. Are we going to do the thing that integrates really directly and is easier for 80% of the things, or do I need the extra 20%? And do I want a different login and more manual work to make it play together? That's the challenge of it. There's no perfect thing that makes everything work together perfectly.
So, what is your process for making that decision? How do you balance those things to make the right decision
I don't know that I
with
make the right
confidence?
decision or that we make the right decision. We make team decisions.
Yeah.
That piece, I think that we have an upper leadership team.
Hmm.
Rob, myself, and our upper leadership team, and usually the GMs of our stores make decisions together. A lot of times, if we're demoing something new,
Hmm.
we will demo it with the whole team, and we'll take a little bit of a longer time to process it out to see if we like it. But even that, demos take time, and then
Yeah.
changing a system from one system to another takes a lot of time. And
Yeah.
I want my managers and my employees on the floor with guests doing what I
Yeah.
about creating experiences. So that's the biggest challenge I think is time.
Yeah, I imagine whenever there is a system change or friction with a system, um, how that plays out on the floor has got to be challenging in and of itself. But then you've got, if you make changes to those systems, then you have to train and then you have to depend on your team to adopt those changes.
And
Um,
changes
do
hands
you,
for people.
do
Yeah.
you ever have pushback from your team on,
Yeah.
the systems and tools, and how do you deal with that?
I had a venue that we had to make 2 point of sales changes within a 3-year period of time. And I know 3 years seems like a long time, but when you have team members that are trained in really fast, and this is a high volume concept, um, It's hard, and they had some challenges with the first system. One of our venues relies very, 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 very heavily on technology. And something else that's interesting about our concepts, every single one is in a historic building. So when you look it's cool, but when you
Very
look at
cool.
Wi-Fi issues that come with historic buildings,
Yeah.
other challenges, they're just a little bit in every way, shape, or form. They're magical to be in and tell the stories of them. There definitely are challenges when it comes to the bones of those buildings, and they were old for a reason, right? And building in
Yeah.
new so, you just have to continue to create trust. And part of that comes down with trust of your vendor, the person that you're partnering with. Because
Yeah.
I think, just like an interview, every vendor presents their very best self when they're selling something, right? You get to like, and they sell you the bells and the whistles and
Yeah.
all the things it's going to do. And then when you get into it, just like a new hire going through an interview process that presents their best self and gets to the first day, sometimes you see something completely different. And I will say, I see a lot of transition and a lot of challenges with our technology systems and the people that are the longevity of the folks they have working for them too. So pandemic really changed the world from a guest service standpoint and longevity standpoint. It shifted restaurants and changed our culture forever. And I don't think we've recovered from that yet. So I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people, broke out of this industry and went to do other things. So being new in that role, you haven't learned everything that you need to learn. And
Yeah.
then the trainings aspect suffers too. So all you can do is build trust with your team, try to do the right thing, assess what you're doing, and then say, okay, is this working or is this not working?
Right. Uh, just a real quick follow on that. Are you seeing as if you compare traditional restaurant, traditional, entertainment industry type concepts versus, restaurants, do you see a lot of turnover with your team? Do you see labor shortages with your team, like a lot of companies are dealing with right now when it comes to
We're the
labor?
opposite right now.
Okay.
So we just are in a market right now that I think there are a lot of people looking. As I said, the last couple of months have been very, very tough on restaurants. And so I do think that there are not a lot of positions and there are a lot of people
Okay.
their hours back. That being said, I will say that I think that every restaurant sees some turnover.
Of
Again,
course. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's just the nature. I mean, we're one of the highest ranked industries for turnover.
Yeah.
Um, and do we see longevity with some team members? Yes. But restaurants for often for people are transitional jobs. They are the job you have part time in college, or maybe you're a teacher and you have the summer off. And two of my businesses are very seasonal, where they actually counteract each other. St. Paul Brewing is very, very busy in the summer. When their patio opens, they quadruple their size and seating capacity. And Can Wonderland, they're busiest in the winter when nobody can go and enjoy lake season. So everybody flux there in the winter months and their summers are a little slower. So with seasonal businesses, sometimes we're hiring seasonal workers. So we're a little unusual. My
Yeah.
team at the studio has been there from the beginning and we've had no transition there. It just depends on the team.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting when you've got the different concepts under one umbrella, it kind of covers you seasonally,
Sometimes it
which
does,
can
and
be
there's a lot
really,
there. Yep.
yeah, that's really interesting. I would like to talk a little bit more about the different concepts.
Yeah.
So, with the different concepts under that one umbrella, what are some of the hardest um, um, challenges that you have operationally consistently? Like, are there any problems that just kind of come up all the time that you just haven't been able to nail down yet?
Nothing that I can think of offhand besides like phones on the floor, like the little things that are just a part of our natural human instinct.
Yeah,
I joke
yeah,
around in orientation when I lead it, and I say I know that your cell phone is like an extension of your body, and that you have to
true.
have it in order to feel secure. And I'm not such old guard that I'm like, oh my God, let me take your cell phone away from you and lock it up. I just want people to be responsible, and it does take constant check-in because if a guest is asking for the score of of what the Twins game is, I want the person that's taking care of that guest to be able to report back. And I have no problem with them pulling up their cell phone for that. What I don't want is what our young generations have drilled into them, which is texting on the floor because that's how they communicate with each other. I mean,
Right.
let's this. We're in a world where even I sometimes text my family now instead of calling them because of bandwidth and time.
Hmm.
We have such quick access to information and it comes at us so fast that it's not the world of encyclopedia book reports anymore, right? So
Yeah.
of that fact, also I think that um, process and understanding when things are slower and things take a certain time and process to do them. I think there's impatience for some of our younger generations that come along with that, who
Yeah.
come in thinking that they know it all because they're used to getting information so quickly. So it's
Yeah.
just working with your generations and understanding them. I teach a class on generations in the workplace, and
Really?
I thought it was really important because I think that different generations, you have to I've always been under the logic that you have to understand the true root of who you're working with and what their journeys are in order to see success from them and to be a good employer. So it's looking underneath the surface of them and understanding their human level. And the only way you develop trust is understanding what drives each of our individual team members. And again, that takes time on the front end, but good leaders take time on the front end to develop trust, and then it allows their team to open up to them when there's a challenge. I have an open door policy. I want my team members and the people that report to me to be able to come to me at any point in time. And I don't expect anybody to work the schedule that I work. I work a lot, but I'm passionate about it and I love it very much. And I want to share that passion with other people that fall in love with the same industry and want to be in it with me.
Yeah. Are there any uh when we talk about the different people and the different roles and um the role that people fit into within the business, are there any handoffs or workflows or communication gaps that create more pain or friction than it should? In other words, when you're running a multifaceted business from an operational perspective, are you do you find that there are issues in any of these areas that you think should get attention, but that aren't getting attention, maybe because of those bandwidth issues that you're having?
Think that's true of any company, especially as you're growing. We're a growing company.
Hmm.
I mean, Dark Horse, and then our other company, the distillery, opened up within the same year of each other. And really, it's three
It's a lot.
businesses,
Yeah.
which is a lot. So that takes me away from the rest of the concepts, and I have to rely on my general managers who I trust to make really good decisions within those stores, right? So, and we have complicated businesses being seasonal because of the fact that again, it's like opening a new restaurant every winter at Can or every summer or every spring at St. Paul Brewing. So definitely there's those challenges. And it's also the challenge of every human on my team has a different style of communication, a different preference. I have some people that work for me that love the text message in the moment. I have some that prefer it by email, and I have some that want the face to face. So, and sometimes I can't give the bandwidth in all three ways exactly the way that they want it. So, of course, there's always going to be balls dropped from time to time. That's the nature of our industry, but it's also training your team again to trust, pivot, and not just wait for the order to come from the top. I believe it looks like this. You hold your team up, not like this.
Yeah.
And I want our managers to feel empowered to make decisions, and I want them to be able to be comfortable filling in those gaps.
Yeah, I can see how that would be really challenging when people have different communication methods that they prefer, and being able to accommodate that because you want to kind of meet them where they are, but not always being able to satisfy that. I can see that as being really challenging just from like a culture perspective.
My
And
clear standpoint, right?
yeah, yeah. And so yeah, that's a really interesting tension that I'm sure you have to deal with across all the different roles and responsibilities that you have. Okay, I want to dig in a little bit on the like process side of things. So, um, obviously from the outside looking in, if I were to walk into one of your locations, I would expect a seamless, like everything's just running great, right? Everything's
You would
just
have that exact
rosy.
experience, I'm sure. It'd be
And
wonderful.
but behind the scenes, I'm sure there's a little bit of chaos going on back there, right?
Depends on
Um
the day, but that can absolutely be true.
Yeah, so I'm curious what that looks like behind the scenes. What is the operational process driven stuff, things that make the experience seem seamless? What's going on back there? That
Well, I
that
think every store is a little unusual and different from each other, and I think that Ken Wonderland is probably the most unusual
Mhm.
because of the fact that a guest pays an admission, and then they have the ability to open a tab on their phone that they can then use for various things within our venue. So they can use it for food and beverage from our bar. We have a tap wall that has over 40 tap lines there that they can use it to get their glass and do their pour after they meet with a human that can activate their card. They can do mini golf with that. We have a smash room there. We have something that's called karaoke where you get to sing your favorite song sitting in a car with the lyrics coming up on the dashboard.
I love
We're very
it.
well, again, having your own fabrication team allow and working with local artists allows you to be very, very, very creative. Technology has to flow. And we have a concessions area where you take your order. So it's not full service there. And we play with all of those pieces. So sometimes that means that because you're using QR code service, same at our brewery, that the place can pack in 20 minutes and everybody puts in an order at the exact same time. And we're having to use our KDS to bump up the ticket time so the guest sees it on the pizza section because pizza's or our malt area is getting rocked. So paying constant attention to those levels and flow in those venues is very unusual. Where at Dark Horse is full service and they are located in Lower Town St. Paul and they're right near the Saints Stadium. So when the Saints game gets out or before it happens, they get bum rushed, right? And so it's the same thing. Knowing what events are going on downtown, knowing what we have to be ahead of, prepping for that as much as you can, and then seeing what happens and being ready. I like to say that the best leaders are not firefighters; they're the ones that discover where the smoke is first, right?
Mhm.
So I like to teach the tactic of follow the bubble as a manager. If you think of the bubble being over the top of the biggest challenge of flow that you have in your store, that's where your hands on. So if a guest walks into Dark Forest and there's a whole bunch of guests walking in at the same time, host gets bombarded first, then it goes to bar, then it goes to the kitchen, and wherever that bubble is where my leaders should be following the guest and making sure that guest satisfaction piece is there. As leaders, all we can do is be the glue. Trust in our team, train them well, and be the glue to hold things together when things start to feel a little sticky. And on the backside, if something goes wrong, we make food and beverage at the end of the day. We need to have honest conversations. We need to apologize. We need to do whatever it takes to make that guest experience right. And I know 100% that some of my best guest relationships have started with really horrific guest experiences, and they're not intentional, but the people make mistakes. We're all human. Technology fails. Internet goes out. Sometimes the little handheld that you have, somebody didn't charge it the night before, and all of a sudden it stops working. All that stuff can happen, and all we can do in those moments is be forthcoming with the guest and be honest about it. And I think the guest is much more eager if you're willing to make it right, to
Right.
be understanding of any situation. We had a very unusual on last week, Saturday, 73-degree day, or 2 Saturdays ago. And all of our patios got opened on that day, and all of us tripled in sales. And we weren't able to hire for one beautiful, perfect patio day in the middle of March, right? So
Right.
we're hopefully understanding. I did a social media post about it, proactively apologizing if wait times for things were long, because I knew that we weren't on point with ticket times for food or beverage in two of our venues. But you know what? You do what you can and you apologize. That matters.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious, whenever those moments happen, or let's not even focus on that because that's just a moment in time. But when there are baseball games going on and those happen frequently, and you do have those rushes in after the games or before the games, when when you're monitoring those situations, well, number one, how are they monitored other than just or is it just, are you just having verbal meetings and you're talking about it, at the end of the
We use
night?
technology to communicate.
Uh,
Every store has some kind of a communication tool that's all team, and they try to
so is it
identify.
happening real time?
No,
Okay.
like beforehand. So we'll like pre-shift it. So
Oh, okay.
this is the things that are coming up this week. For my venues that sports are a big deal, they'll talk about those pieces. And some of the stores have systems at their point of sales that they can actually program them right in. So when a team member comes in and clocks in for the day, it can tell them things that are going to be happening. What's really important is our leaders doing research ahead of time so that they know for Can Can Wonderland, it's when kids are out of school because they'll get those days because parents don't want their kids running around at home all day. So they look for something to do with them, right? So they go to Can Can Wonderland. Um, at St. Paul Brewing, it's whenever the weather is warm. We know that they are going to have a busy day
Yeah.
because their is so sensational. And for Dark Horse, it's literally sport. They're so sports driven and so
Yes.
events driven for what's happening down.
Yeah. That makes total sense. We've got the same, we're in Houston. The Astros are, we're
Yep.
seeing it now, and our weather down here, it's very different than it is up there. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's warming up, and yeah, it's busy during baseball season, that's for sure. So I'd like to talk a little bit, and I know we're going over our time just a little bit, but I've got a couple of things I just want to touch on quickly. I would love to know how how do you grow? Well, and it sounds like y'all are doing a great job with growth. I'm curious with a business like Eclective, without diluting what makes it so unique and different, how do you grow that as a concept, across all the different markets, so to speak?
I think you continue to build your bench. You look for individuals that are within your concepts that seem like they could be the next leader and you nurture them. I think we're always retaining too. I'm lucky that I have amazing teams and I'm lucky to have a lot of amazing community connections right now. Rob does too. Rob's wife does too. And we lean on those a little bit. So when you make friends with your neighbors, it makes it easier when something comes up and you end up retaining and bringing more people in.
Hmm.
Because I've been spending more time at my distillery property recently, I've seen this amazing outpouring of humans that are so interested to send their application to us because they like the fact that at that concept we are women owned and what our voices on social media and that we're in our community and they see it so they want to work for somebody that does those things and you get retention through that you get people that are excited to be a part of what you're creating and because of what we're creating is so unusual, I always call us like we're like the underdog, and I love
Yeah.
underdog story
Yeah.
of Twin Cities. We're the creative underdog. But I think that again, we're unusual. So we do creatives are really attracted to us. We partner with local artists. We love music and musicians. We have breathed new life into old bricks in all of our historic locations. We give a home for artists where AI is replacing what they do. We love focusing on creative energy, and Rob really honed that before I ever came to our company, and it's something that I'm proud to be a part of, and that's why I chose to work for him. So at the end of the day, like I love what we're creating, and I think the vibrance of that is something unusual or different, where we're leading with creativity, and yes, that's sometimes chaotic. And yes, we don't have every system figured out. We're still a small company, even though we
Yeah.
have large stores. Um, and we just find people that want to get into that, yeah, into that environment with us.
Yeah, I think that's great. I definitely don't want to, it sounds like you guys have such a great thing going. And it just sounds like a really exciting place to be, just like in your career. I think it just sounds fun and really enjoyable.
Well, there's
But
moments I want to scream, but it is really
yeah,
fun and enjoyable. Yeah.
but I am gonna ask one more like pain
Sure.
related question
Sure.
is, if you could snap your fingers and fix one like major bottleneck in the business, what would that be?
We're in the process. I know what it is. We're in the process right now of taking on a new inventory system. And it's a pain point for my teams. It's just,
Yeah.
it's restarting from scratch because none of them will actually upload your old information and recipes into them. So taking and yes, there's support from the tech side of the company that we've decided to partner with. But when it comes down to it, it's a learning process and it's a big, long, stodgy process. And it's not fun. And my team doesn't love having to sit in video tutorials.
Ugh,
And I know that for they'd rather be on the floor engaging guests or doing the fun parts of our
yeah.
job that we do. So if I could snap my fingers tomorrow, it would be having that process down pat and having everybody like in the know for it already. But it's necessary, and I know they all know it's necessary.
Yeah. That's great. Um, couple more things. Well, I've got one more question, then I want to get into a quick lightning round.
Sure.
So, one of my last questions is, what advice would you give someone who's trying to build a business that is both operationally strong and creatively distinctive?
Finding some other companies that they admire and reaching out for pain points and honest conversations. Going back to my childhood, Miracle on 34th Street was my favorite movie.
Me
And
too.
the old version, not the new.
Yes, yes, the old one.
love I love the idea of you have Santa Claus, right? That is really about the hospitality experience and is recommending every other place and in turn brings fanfare for the place that he works in, right? And it's an amazing story and it always makes me emotional. So like to me, that's what we can do better is just opened a distillery. I had a gentleman out of the blue on Instagram reach out to me. I think he could just tell I was an open individual and I'm our social media voice for the distillery. And he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, but I'm buying a distillery. I'm going into it blind." And I was like, "Ugh." And he's like, would you mind just a networking conversation? Would you?" And I think we should be honest about our pain points. So to me, it's helpful to reach out to resources that you trust. And I wish more businesses wouldn't keep. I know that I have a lot of friends that don't, and I get along really, really well with other operators in the Twin Cities. And I reach out to them when I have questions because we can help each other together. So, and avoid making some of the mistakes when we all put our hands in the middle. My old proprietor used to say that the hand is very fragile, that each individual finger can be easily broken. But if you put your hand into a fist, you become very powerful.
Love that.
And that's what I think you need to do in those moments. That's
That's
how you become
fantastic.
strong. And don't be afraid of creative risk.
Yep.
Start little and build on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Lightning round.
Yep.
Creativity in business, competitive advantage or operational headache?
Competitive advantage.
Most underrated role in a business like yours?
Oh, that's hard. Lightning and it's fast. Underrated rule. I think it's that I just think it's treating people with kindness. I think that's really important.
Okay. One tool, system, or ritual your team could not live without?
A pre-shift.
Biggest misconception people have about operations?
That it is fluid and goes by easily. Often there's so many moving parts behind the scenes that give the guests their experience.
Okay, and I think this last question would be interesting to lead into the other concept that you talked about at the very beginning. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
My other business. Um, um, I got the pleasure of opening as a side business with Rob Clapp's wife, Regina, the first women-owned whiskey distillery in the state of Minnesota.
So great.
Yeah, we're super excited. We have a cocktail room called Crowbar. The distillery is called Voliere Spirits. We just hit distribution on it. And Crowbar is unusual because we took the concept of a distillery cocktail room, which is usually an industrial building with just focus on the spirits themselves, and we turned it upside down. We have upcycled furnishings that honor bars and restaurants that closed in the Twin Cities. They're all salvaged items. We play vinyl. It's a comfortable space where you can come as you are, and we focus equally on zero proof program, as well as the amazing cocktail program that we're doing. So it's a fun business.
That is amazing. Yeah, which leads me to, if anybody wants to find you or connect with you, where should they go?
Go to Eclective, co.com. Collective is eclectic and collective. smashed together. That's where that word comes from. So you can see us there. That's the easiest place to find all of our businesses, or folierspirits.com, which is the other easy way to find us. We're all over every single format that you can find us on socials.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Liza. I appreciate your time today. This was a fun conversation and kind of getting some insight into what's going on behind the scenes in a business like yours. So thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.